everybody. We have a very nice class today. We will start with the Bonaparte retreat with Naomi in California.
Sorry. May I try the ending one more time, Ms.Quinn?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is Naomi's first time performing a harmonic on the violin.
I promise you, it was perfect.
I heard it 20 times perfect at your lesson. It's just the scariest, riskiest thing because you can't have too much pressure. You can't have too little pressure.
Yeah.
And then the bow's got to be straight and parallel. You cannot change the speed of the bow movement. Yeah, you want to try it again?
Yes, Ms.Quinn.
Oh, there you got it. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. And next we have some Chopin. And we're going to be starting with the Fantasie-Impromptu, Opus 66. Now this was composed in 1834. He had died in 1849 of mysterious causes, which we'll talk about a little later. Although Chopin instructed that none of his unpublished manuscripts should be published, this one was published 6 years after he died, and it's known as the Julian Fontana edition. It was full of lots of notations and so forth. He was a friend, and he was also his executor. And this edited version became the standard. So nobody knows if he published it, he went ahead and did it because Chopin played it a certain way, or whether Chopin told him how it's supposed to be played, and he felt it should be done, or if he did this edition to suit his own personal taste about how that song should go. So the mystery has been going on for a long time, and it may have been solved in 1960 when pianist Arthur Rubinstein acquired, it was in the archives, the album of the Baroness Neste, which had been sold at an auction in Paris. The album contained a manuscript of the Fantasie-Impromptu, I'm reading a quote now, word for word, in Chopin's own hand, dated 1835, stating on the title page in French, composed for the Baroness d'Este by Frédéric Chopin.
Can I just do a quick sound test just so you tell me if it's all right?
Yes.
How's that?
Got a beautiful piano. Jared, tell Carol what about your piano. Carol, unmute yourself.
Hi, Carol. Yeah, no, my piano is it's a antique Bosendorfer from about 1960 that was rebuilt about 3-4 years ago, and I purchased it in Boston and it came over here to me, and it's lovely, lovely old demure sound.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Not like the new pianos.
Wow.
Thank you. Huge, huge work. Huge work. How did you feel today playing this, Jared?
You know, if I can be honest, I keep putting this one off because I just don't like playing it in front of people.
So that's why you didn't play it last month.
No, you know, I never, for some reason, you know, maybe it's just the way that I always resist playing it in front of people. It's not my favorite. I'm glad to know it and I'm glad to play it, but I don't know if it's cursing me. I don't, it felt okay today, honestly. It was fine. I mean, it was, maybe it's difficult, but there's so many notes that if you trip on one, it's so hard to get back on track. So I just, and you know, there's no room. You just start right into it. I don't know. I just something. Maybe I've psyched myself out on it. But I always resist it. Maybe also because everybody knows it. So I mean, sometimes it's easier to play pieces that are more obscure and nobody knows.
Definitely.
Everybody knows this one.
Well, maybe after we work on it a little bit, maybe you'll like it better.
All right, I'm open.
You are. Uh, you have bar numbers in your part?
I don't.
Do not?
No, but I
Okay.
can. I'll pick up.
Shoot. Okay. It's that in general, I mean, I can see you did a lot of work in making sure all your notes were, and the middle section was quite beautiful. There's some things that I guess what you're saying is coming off in the music a bit. There were times where it felt a little bit etude. I'm sure, and also I'm sure that you have the same edition that I have, with the accents written
Yeah.
um, in the first page. You know, like when the accent comes in the right hand on
Yeah.
the first 16th note, and that goes on 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 bars, and then you have 4 bars, 6 bars with the accent coming on the top note, which is the second 16th of each.
Yeah.
hmm So if you practice that um, with little pauses to get that in, if you practiced it that way,
What do you mean by little pauses?
I'll show you. Right?
Gotcha.
And so forth. Did you ever do that as part of your preparation?
You know, maybe not exactly in that way, but I definitely did something to, you know, bring the melody and then, you know, and try
Could
and
we
think.
hear that section again?
Sure. Just from
Yeah,
the just from the G sharp first time it comes in.
yeah, and all the way up to the recap, like 4 bars into the next page.
I have a probably different edition, so I don't know. But you mean where the first part comes in, the
Yep,
tempo.
right. Okay, good. I think you're going to do with a lot less left hand. A lot less left hand, you know? And let me give you a whole bunch of ideas because you're good at grabbing lots of things at once. Um, in the um, 11th measure, where you have the middle of the measure, you have the F double sharp.
Yeah.
So we have in your right hand mostly scales and small intervals, and then suddenly you have that big interval where you go from an E sharp you see where that is? That's a place where you need a little bit of a breath.
Okay.
Yeah, either push back a little bit on right before or after the F double sharp. Because you're crescendoing right up until there, so you can give a little bit of room, a little bit of, because after that you're just coming down for a measure. Then it comes in with that accented part. The part with the accented 16th notes, I would definitely bring down that left hand. Because I'm hearing it way too much, and we want to hear that melody more. And then at the recap, we have after the recap, 1, 2, 3, third bar in the middle of that measure, you could also give a little bit of time there. You should have a hairpin crescendo, decrescendo, but you can give a little bit of time there. You did a great job leading up to the descending chromatic scale. That was, I love that, though you did a great job of building up that huge long section, which is a bit by bit crescendo. I love the way you handled that. And let's work on this for the first section, then we'll go into the Largo section.
All right, so you want me to just run the first section through the Largo?
Yeah, and that last 4 bars we have the descending octaves, a little less angry sounding.
Oh, but that's the best part.
Well, Rubinstein, the second time it comes through, Rubinstein hits those staccato. It's kind of interesting. Maybe you're doing it different the second time.
All right, I'll try and do it.
I would say stormy, but maybe not angry. I mean, I think it should be stormy. And one other thing, the beginning of the piece, it ties in with the middle section in an interesting way. It starts here. And then in the middle section, that interval in the beginning, setting up the stage in a way. I think if you could play that with a little bit more strength on both of them, not necessarily forte, bum, bum, and then the second theme has the descending that keeps repeating itself from the A flat to the F. I think that was the only relationship I can really find between the two sections. And the first 2 bars, I don't think you have to count it exactly.
Oh, did I? I don't think I did. Maybe I did it subliminally.
Right, I don't think you did either. I would think of it as a bong, bong, da 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 da, kind of as a frame.
Yeah, I was thinking almost
See
like
it as a frame. It's the only time in the piece where he holds a note that long, and it is a fantasy. and I love the way you opened that, fairly soft and so forth. Anytime you have interesting things going in the right hand with the melody via the accents, I would lay a little lower on your left hand in general.
Okay.
Whenever you have a hairpin 27, give a little bit of breath at the top of those. That's it.
All right, let's give it a go. I'll go to the Largo.
Okay.
Hear the melody. Play this fantasy. Okay.
Very, very nice. I thought that, I think that those were, I think that made it sound better. What do you all think? Were you able to hear the melody better through bringing that left hand down a little bit? And right before the long crescendo, Jared, at the recap, 1, 2, about 8 measures before the descending chromatic, you have the top note of the last end of the measure C sharp, and then you have C sharp, and then the next one's E, and the last note, sorry, D sharp, and then you have the accent on the second beat E. Do you see where I am?
8 bars after the recap?
Yeah.
I don't have
Six
an
starts
accent.
6 bars. It starts 6 bars after.
That's
You have the
for
high C sharp, da 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 da
Yeah.
da, and then you have it. Then it goes to a D sharp, and then second beat E. Next measure, second beat E.
Yeah, the E is accented, the high E.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to just do that little section again. Sweep those up so that we hear the top note a little more.
Alright, so should
That
we
would be
start?
part of the crescendo and part of the tension there. And then it rhythmically tightens up real quick when it comes in on the second beat. Can we start from the recap?
The recap. A tempo, yeah?
Yeah, and go ahead, third bar into it. Give a little hairpin. Give a little breathing in there. Give a little bit of breathing in there. Very nice. One more thing. The last 4 notes of the descending chromatic line, you can slow them down just slightly, just the last 4 notes, just so we know we're at the end of that. And maybe point the fingers, maybe even staccato those. Let's see which one sounds better on your piano. You want to start at the top of the descending chromatic? Oh, I got it from here. Oh my God. A little too much, but that's the idea.
Yeah, I like that.
Good, good. So now let's take it from that place and then go ahead and come into your Largo part.
Okay,
Now, one note on the Largo part, when you start that middle section, it's pesante. Do you know what that means?
I probably should, but I don't.
Yeah, you need to play it more pesante. It's heavy, it's loaded, it's like carrying heavy things and walking and plodding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I would do, you want that stronger. You're coming out of a forte that nobody can stop their heart and go into a whole different pulse like this. It's not a separate movement. This is all one piece. So da 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 bum 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 ya da 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 da. And the second measure is now you're going into the new section. And that one's smoother, and that becomes more fantasy and more dreamy in just one measure. So we're going to gradually come into this with those 2 measures. Okay? You want to try that?
Sure, you want me to start at the descending chromatic and go
Yes,
into it?
yes, please. Okay, good. So let's work on this section. Okay, good, good. I tried to pause you in the middle of that. Jared, I think it's beautiful how you're playing it. Again, I think a little bit more gentle on your ornaments. Rather, da 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 da, you know, lead in, da 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 bum, and all those ornaments, you would come in on the note above, but not, not so fast on those. I would rather have just a small three-note trill, da 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 da, as more of part of the melody there, you know, on those. The ones that are written out in 30-second notes, those are all coming off great. So the trills, I think they all come in, they all start on the note above, and in general, I would like to see the left hand much less. Let's go ahead and do the 2 bars before it again, but pesante on every single one of those notes until the last 3 notes of the first measure. You came in really nice pesante, but I want to feel that heaviness still. And then lighten it up for the next measure, and then sottovoce with the right hand melody. Okay? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That was very nice. So I think when you're playing this again, I would love for you to try to experiment with this a little more. I would love for you to love this piece a little bit more. And just for fun, I'm just going to tell you, maybe this will inspire you to get the original. In that weird measure where the second beat comes in on the C middle section, C, and then you've got 7 notes against 6 notes.
Yeah.
You probably worked really, really hard on that. I know when I was learning it, I did. And well, guess what? In the original, the C comes in on the second beat. I mean, what is this, 4/4? I think of it as cut time. Comes in on the second half of the measure.
So it just matches up fine.
Oh, it's so much easier. This piece has a special meaning for me. You know, I don't know if I told you the story about that.
I don't think so.
Maybe not. Well, I was, the piano tuner came to the house one time, and the piano tuner said, oh, this widow in Chicago there was married to a famous pianist, and she couldn't stand to have the piano anymore there. Her heart was broken and so forth, and so she was having a bunch of young people come over and audition to get the Steinway. So I told my teacher about it, and he said, what kind of Steinway, what year was it? And I told him, and he said, if you get this piano, you will never need another piano for the rest of your life. He said, I think I know which piano this is. And so I had to practice a lot more. And I had something prepared, the Franc Concerto, and then he said, finish up the Chopin. So I had to learn this one really, really fast. In about, I think it was 3 weeks to perform it. And so when I played the Franc thing, she wanted more music, just like the teacher said. If she likes your playing, she's going to ask you to keep playing and playing and playing. And so I pulled out this piece, and I wound up getting the piano. But the thing is this piece was the piece that her husband dedicated to her at the end of all his recitals, dedicated to my wife. She was also a pianist too. And so when she heard me play it, it just pulled all of her heartstrings, and it was a sentimental thing. And it was the right piece to play at the right time for sure.
You got your money's worth.
What?
You got your money's worth.
A little slower.
I said you got your money's worth on it.
Oh, that's for sure. I was glad I practiced. That was a lot of practicing those 3 weeks. But he told me it would be worth it. So let's go into the Largo, and I thought I'd tell you a few things about this. The Largo was written about, I think, 2 or 3 years before Chopin died. And Chopin was sick, was chronically ill, and for his whole life. I don't know if you're aware of that. He had a lot of health problems. He was a meticulous dresser, by the way. He dressed from head to toe, every little thing in place. He was, I was reading up on him, and there was a phrase where he described his life to someone, and I could so relate to it. He said, "My life is timed to the minute." So, and that's the way I was as a kid. Every 15-minute increment of time had an assignment, and he was very, very organized with his time and with his students. So, anyway, what I was going to tell you was that he never knew when he was going to die, and he had a request that he wanted his heart cut out of his corpse. Does anyone know about this?
That sounds weird.
Well, I thought it was really interesting. A little morbid, but I think it's really interesting. That's what he wanted. And with his dying breaths in 1849 Paris, he requested that his heart be removed and entombed in his beloved homeland, Poland. At that time, Poland had lost its individual existence, as it had been swallowed up by the Russian Empire, Prussia, and the Habsburg monarchy. So Chopin suffered from, it's called taphophobia, and this is a fear of being buried alive. And apparently this was no secret to his friends. They knew about this. And that fear extended to the burial of his heart, which he saw as a symbol of his living soul. His last words that he spoke was, "Swear to make them cut me open so that I won't be buried alive." Imagine this.
Sounds like a weirdo.
I know, but like I said, he was very sick in his life. He was always getting sick. So when he wrote the Largo, he might not have known if this was going to be his last piece or not, the Cello Sonata. So his body was laid to rest in a cemetery in Paris, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but his deathbed wish was granted. His heart was removed from his body and sealed in a jar of liquor, which many believe to be cognac. After that, his sister Ludwika smuggled his heart past the Russian border guards in Warsaw. After bouncing from relative to relative in this jar of cognac, it finally was sealed in a pillar at the Holy Cross Church. The cause of Chopin's death was a mystery. He had the symptoms of tuberculosis, but there was something else to it, and nobody could figure out what that was for about 150 years. The scientists always thought that if they could examine his heart, they could finally determine the cause of his death. So apparently the tuberculosis symptoms were not enough would indicate somebody would actually die from it. So fairly recently in 2014, a group of scientists finally got their chance, and they published the results in the American Journal of Medicine. The study claims that Chopin died of pericarditis. It's a rare complication of the tuberculosis that causes the swelling of the membrane surrounding the heart, according to Mayo Clinic. The heart had taken a long and storied journey. So here, imagine if he had not had the heart taken out, nobody today would have been able to find out how he really died. I like these stories.
By the way, I don't know if it's true, but I think this was the last piece he played publicly before he died. I mean, not the transcription, but with the cellist. I think this was his last performance. I read that. Or it was part of his last recital when there was a bunch of other stuff he played, but it was one of the pieces.
So are you saying that he played the piano transcription of this cello?
I think he played with the cellist.
Oh, he played it with the cellist. Great, I didn't know about that. All right, thank you, Jared. Thank you. All right, this is a beautiful thing. And did you happen to listen to this cello sonata playing it with this?
So I think, but I didn't know the piece existed till maybe a few months ago, and I think I heard Daniel Tripanoff play the transcription, and then after that, I thought it was beautiful, and then I listened to the original, but I haven't listened to it since I really started playing it.
Yes. Now when I first met you as a teenager, you were a viola player.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of this is right there in the viola range. So
Yeah.
I'd love for you to think of it more of the solo line as you recall when you were playing the viola, and make it, just bring that string sound into it more. The right hand needs to be more vocal, and by more vocal, it's whenever you're going up toward a higher pitch, the singer has to come up and support that frame from underneath there, and often takes a little quick breath at the end. So there's always a little hairpin thing, which I think can happen more. Everything moves towards that top note, like in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 measure. The cookie is on the fourth beat.
Yeah.
There. And the middle voices, left hand, middle voices, left hand, are much less important than you're giving it. I'm hearing it too. I'm hearing just these are general comments that really go through. Yes, I know there's some left hand notes and a couple of them that have 2 stems, but I would really just let it be the melody and the bottom notes of the bass. Let the bottom notes of these bass be the harmonic structure of it to accompany. You could almost do this piece without any of the notes from bass C to middle C in the left hand. And for sure, I see the fingers pointing way too much in the left hand, Jared. So when you need to use your second finger on those rolling chords, flatten the hand a little bit more. I know your hands are really, really big. Can you do that like in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line? Are you able to do that? The left hand by itself to flatten the second finger more? Can you play that in 1 measure?
That's where the
Okay, okay. So it's the thumb is the culprit. I don't think you need to make the top note part of that crescendo necessarily. Just really go easy on the thumb. Just barely touch it. We are going to hear it. It's in the range in relation to the right hand melody. We are going to hear the top note without any effort whatsoever. So I would just barely touch those. You want to try it again, just the 2 measures?
sure.
Right, right. So I would definitely practice a lot of left hand here. You've got a piano that is super sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in this instance, your piano demands much of you.
Yeah, and the bass, and the bass is the voicing is very much in the bass. I had the same problem in all pieces. It's very hard to make the right hand. The bass is so strong compared to the treble.
Oh. Well, I'm certainly hearing that.
Yeah,
Certainly
I know.
hearing that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. So that's what I would work on is maybe just play the melody on its own a bunch of times and get the structure of what it is. Now that because your notes are really solid, I think you know the rhythm very, very well in this piece, and you've got a good idea of the expression that you need from it. I just think it'll sound even better when we try to get some of those left-hand notes out of the way. If we don't hear them, it's not a big deal, you know?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we have one more performer today. Judy, do you still want to play? Because we could go over to the adult questions, because I know your situation in the morning has changed a lot. Do you want to go to the discussion now? Or do you want to go ahead and try playing?
I think I'd like to go ahead and play.
Wow. Okay. All right, good. Judy is playing the children's medley. Piece that she worked on and actually performed already in church. Well, Judy, you remind me of something I've long forgotten, and
What's
is
that?
how well you perform under pressure.
Oh,
That was beautiful.
Thank
You
you.
know what comes across the most in your playing and is your musicianship. You know, we always talk in this class about singing our phrases. We talk a lot about phrasing and how to let music breathe. And I'm just so pleased that the emotional part and being able to do these phrases, it was very pleasant to me. It was very pleasant. Did anybody want to make some comments on how they felt hearing this piece?
Felt soulful.
Yeah. I got a Christmas card from Judy with an original poem, and I will tell you, she is very, very soulful. I love this performance, Judy, and I'm really glad. I know you played it before, and the internet was all a mess and everything, and I'm really very happy that you came to bring your music to us today.
Thank you. Henry likes this piece, so I play it for Henry.
That'll keep you practicing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So next we have some discussion questions I thought we'd throw around. And I had suggested if anybody wanted to let me know ahead of time what question they particularly wanted. Shannon said not to give them a particular question. And Shannon was, when these questions went around in January, Shannon was the only one that even wanted to tackle number 4. And Carol showed some interest in question number 1. So let's unmute ourselves and have some fun, have some dialogue. So the first question is, who is your favorite composer these days, and what piece do you especially enjoy?
Well, I can't limit it to one composer, so I find myself drawn to the music of Grieg, Ravel, and Debussy, and obviously that puts me into the romantic lover of romantic music. But 2 pieces I've been working on more recently, which I enjoyed working on, were Mendelssohn's Rondo Capriccioso. It's Opus 14. It's very hard. And then a piece I'm working on right now, which I'm really enjoying, and it feels like it shows that I've actually made improvement, is is Romance by Sibelius. It's Opus 24, number 9, and it's challenging for me, but I'm excited because I'm seeing improvement in what I'm able to do. So
That makes it really exciting. That makes it really exciting. Is part of the excitement for you, Carol, playing the piece slowly and just hearing the harmonies and the pleasure of that? Or do you often listen to YouTubes and get a picture of the final picture, the final performance of it, and then sort of hearing that in what you're playing? I'm curious which way it goes for you.
well, first I'll practice a piece and then I will listen to it, because sometimes if I listen to it first, I won't even want to practice. I mean, it's like so I can't, most of the time I can't get it up to speed of whoever is playing it on YouTube. So it'll get me too frustrated. I mean, it's like, I tried learning the Chopin First Ballade, but then when I got, maybe 6 or 7 pages, but then, if I listen to it, I go, there's no way I can do that. So, I stopped it for a while, and my teacher wants me to start it again. But it's just so frustrating. I heard it on the radio and I go, oh no, I can't do that piece because it's just, I can't get it to that speed that you're supposed to.
Anybody else want to pipe in on that question, or we could go to another one? The next question was, so far, And learning to play your instrument, what has been the most difficult challenge? The how-to in playing the music, of course, is the technique. What have you worked the hardest on? For piano, it could be curving fingers, reading the music, counting out loud, how to use a metronome. For violin, it could be making the bow go straight, playing in tune, learning the rhythm, keeping the left hand in the right position. Anybody want to talk about challenges? I see a hand up for Judy.
The violin, playing it in tune. It hurts my ears when I play it out of tune and I can hear it, but I don't always play it in tune. So I wish I did. I'm working on hard to get the right note the first time I play it. It's not as easy as a piano to play the right note.
Yeah, it's a good point. So the good news on that is that it does hurt your ears.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I have to work with a student that can't tell if it's in or out of tune.
Mm.
In the very beginning. I think that was the case with my friend here in Germany. And now Shannon, we've worked with his ears so much, he is hearing the microtones. It's pretty amazing. Sometimes I'd like to let something slide and he hears it and wants to do it again. Carol.
Well, I had to laugh when you were working with Jared because exactly the same challenge, my biggest challenge is balance and dynamics. I can hear it in my head, but to get the fingers to do it, the crescendos and that's the hardest for me. And that's what you were working with him on also.
Yeah, my biggest challenge now is rhythm. I can't get the rhythm down.
Do you want to try that? Do you want to try that rhythm randomizer?
I was looking at that, and that looks interesting. I'm going to try that.
Please do, because you respond really well to the little videos and applying technology.
Yeah, I'll try that.
What are you talking about?
It's something I mentioned at the top of the class while we were waiting for everybody to come. The parent of one of my students texted it to me. It's called Rhythm Randomizer. Like random, and Izer, I-Z-E-R at the end. You go to rhythmrandomizer.com. And it's very simple. Just play with it. It's a metronome, play, record, and you new rhythm, and it'll just show you 2 or 3 or 4 measures of a rhythm, and it gradually gets more and more difficult. If it looks too easy, next, until you get something that's a little more challenging, and it'll set a metronome for you too. Shannon, I think you would go nuts over this thing.
I was looking at it. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to try it out. Yeah. But yeah, with the violin, there's so many different things you have to worry about. Keeping the bow straight, the right amount of pressure. Fingers have to be in the exact right place to make the right tone. Everything. Everything has to be perfect, and if it's not going to work right. And yeah, now my biggest challenge is rhythm. Yeah, so I'm going to use this app.
Well, when I'm teaching violin, with piano first I do rhythm, but with the violin I do the rhythm after I get the intonation because I wouldn't be able to continue teaching. Because if I hear things out of tune, I get a headache, and I just would only be able to teach 1 or 2 people. So that's the first thing. I'm just on that real hard right off the bat, so that my students play in tune, like Abigail and like Judy, and doesn't take too long, but just paying a whole lot of attention to it right from the get-go, I think pays off. Nobody wants to hear a violinist play out of tune. No, no. So, ready for third question? Here we go. Do you ever wonder what it would be like to play a different instrument? Which one and why? And I'm going to include the vocal cords in this. Now, when I was little, I thought it would be really cool to be like Peter Pan and dance around with a flute. So I thought that would be the coolest thing. So I got the little gadget from school. It took me 2 or 3 weeks. I couldn't even get the slightest bit of a whistle from it. But that was something I thought. And my first instrument of love was a cello.
That's what
Um,
I would play.
yeah, well, I started on piano, but cello was my preferred instrument with violin. And when I found out, and I knew I wanted to travel around the world. When I found out I had to pay for 2 tickets for the cello, and I thought, oh gosh, lugging that thing everywhere is going to be a drag. So I did stick with violin, but I still have a deep love for the cello. What about anybody else have another instrument they thought they might want to play? Yes, Judy.
I always wanted to play the trumpet. My dad even had an old trumpet. Loved New Orleans type music. But I was told by my dentist that I couldn't learn trumpet, so I had to give that up. But I've always wanted to play trumpet.
I am so surprised. I've known you for a few years now. I never would have guessed it.
Oh, I love Dixieland music.
What about you, Abigail? I'm up for another surprise.
Sometimes I've thought more about playing bagpipes.
Mm.
It's something I like hearing. One nice thing about bagpipes, it's actually okay if it goes slightly out of tune. It's like it's kind of supposed to do that.
Let's talk about that. Why is it okay?
Well, if you listen to it, the notes kind of, at least I was thinking that the notes kind of vary. They don't exactly stay stable.
Exactly. I've noticed that too as I learned more about the bagpipes. It's kind of the nature of the beast. And I think part of why it's so moving. I played with some bagpipers. I hear a lot more than Chicago for funerals and so forth. And I've noticed that too. I'm really delighted to hear someone else speak about that because there's an emotional quality to it.
I've heard it's a little hard to pick up.
Hard to what?
It's a little hard to learn to get it right.
Oh, I have no idea.
One of the more difficult instruments to learn.
Uh, Jared, do you ever think about going back to viola?
I think about it in the sense of I miss the string. Like there's you can get a nice tone out of the piano, and there's obviously so much range and potential. But there's nothing like the singing quality of a string instrument. I love the cello sound. I love the viola or violin sound. Um, it's probably not. I think it's good to focus. You can spread your energies too thin. So I think I'll stick with piano from here on. But I love the sound of. I mean, I guess the happy compromise is to play chamber music, just to have that sound incorporated. But I think I'd love to do that with players. But I do love the string sound, and I love the wood sound. I mean, there's so many sounds in the orchestra are so nice. The oboe and clarinet sound I found really really lovely. A good French horn player, not a bad French horn player. Um, there's some really nice instruments out there, sounds, and also the voice. I mean, voice is beautiful.
Yes, I would say if I had my choice, but to be an opera singer, oh my gosh, that would be just amazing. There's a great movie called Farinelli, Faranelli. I think it's one of the best movies I've seen in maybe my life. My other favorite movie was In America and Life is Beautiful. And those were my forerunners. I saw Farinelli on Amazon Prime, and it blew me away. I watched it 3 times in a row. Highly recommend it. It's such beautiful music in there. Wow. And it's a history. It's a beautiful story about love and music and the power of music. And it's a true story. I think he was in the 1700s, this opera singer. Has anyone climbed up and down the stairs singing their scale? Anybody try it and want to talk about it? I know somebody who tried it, but I don't know if you're in a mood to talk about it. If you're not, we can move on to the next. All right. It's not a bad idea, actually. I have the little ones going up the stairs doing their do, re, mi, and coming down the stairs, and it does help. I do it with the children more than adults. When you decided to learn to play music, was it because you heard someone live at a concert, a friend played for you, or because you heard something on TV or YouTube? Thinking back. Judy again, then Carol.
I started because I was a little me too. I was 4 years old and my sister was taking piano lessons. And so I was a me too and wanted to take them too. But I'm really sorry that I didn't continue from when I was little, because once we moved, I didn't continue them on. But then I've always loved music. But that's how I got started, was I was a me too. My sister played, so I wanted to play.
Carol, did you want to comment on that?
Well, my mother was a very fine pianist, and she made me take piano lessons, and always said that if I wanted to stop, she would never forgive me. I mean, I would never forgive her if she let me stop. And that was absolutely right. I mean, I would really have been angry with her if she let me stop taking piano lessons. So, you know, I took them as a child, and I took them for 8 years, and then I stopped for a while, and now I'm on my 5th year again, and as an adult. So, you know, I love the piano, and I love practicing, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm glad my mother made me. I mean, we would cry at the piano sometimes, you know, while she was making me practice, and but it all worked out in the end.
That's neat. So who was crying, you and your mother, or one of you?
Oh, I was, you know, just saying I didn't want to practice. But you know, then I got over that.
Yeah,
So Carol, my mother was always forced to practice. And so when I came along, she didn't make us practice, and she didn't even pursue piano lessons that much. And I've always been sorry. I wish that she had made me practice, and I wish I had pursued it when I was younger.
See, and my mother knew that that's what would happen. So
yeah, it does.
She wasn't going to
when I got to college, I kind of picked it back up, and then it was organ. So,
oh wow,
I missed out on violin and piano when I was young.
Well, actually, my mother had me start violin, and it was just so horrible for her to listen to my practicing. That didn't last very long.
I was sent down to the basement the first 3 months of violin. A very moldy, disgusting, it was stank down there because it was a small house, and it was, but then pretty soon I got a very good teacher. And within 4 or 5 lessons, I was relegated to the main level. So, Janet, you and I have never talked about this. What about you? Can you answer this one?
I've forgotten what the question
The
was.
question was, when you decided to learn how to play music, you know, what was it that got you? A friend, a live concert, YouTube recording?
Oh, okay. So it was my mother, like the others. I started in 1st grade because I had very weak hands and fingers. My mother thought it would help strengthen my hands and fingers, and she played the violin. So yeah, I took piano lessons till I was in high school, and then I quit. but I quit in order to play in the band, and I played bass clarinet in the band. But I was terrible. Even though I was first chair, I was terrible. In my opinion. And then I quit for 47 years, didn't play anything, and then I took it back up again because of my mother. I was visiting her, and she said, "You got to take one or the other home with you because I don't have room for them both, and I'm not using them." So. And then I got a flyer in the mail that one of the local colleges was offering group lessons. And I guilted myself into going to that. And everybody in the class was so excited about playing the piano that I became enthusiastic too. And now I wouldn't give it up for anything.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna thank you. That's interesting about the mother coming back later in your life. I'm still storing my daughter's piano, and I'm hoping she'll ask for it to come back.
Well, I went back and played for her after I took it up again. And she was so impressed that she went out and bought me a grand piano.
Oh, wow.
Really? That's so nice. That's so nice. So we're going to save a question for next time. It's called number 6. Why are scales important? Who enjoys scales? What's your favorite way to play the scales? I recently had a weekend where I did some exploring on both instruments and just said, looked at the instrument and say, okay, I'm going to do all the scales, you know, and I'm going to do them in whatever order I want. Am I going to go circle of fifths this way or that way, or how am I going to do it? And I just gave myself an hour or so on each instrument to see what, just listening and just seeing what I really wanted to do with the scales. Within the parameter, I was just going to do the major scales. Then I was going to do all 12 of the major scales. And it was actually very pleasurable.
Mm.
Always a good idea to tune the violin before that. So anyway, thank you all for coming. And thank you, Jared, for performing.
Thank you for coaching.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was so hard to bring the Chopin Impromptu. And thank you all for coming. Thank you, Judy, for your beautiful performance.
Thank you.
So we'll see you in about a month, 3rd Saturday of May.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.